let's get into the defining moment. So tell us a story about a defining moment in your life that made you who you are today.
Okay, so you briefed me before we started the record button, and I told you I'm going to tell you a story that I've never told anyone ever online ever before. So it'll be an exclusive first for you and your audience, and probably the most defining moment of my life. It's actually both simultaneously the saddest moment of my life and one of the happiest at the exact same time, oddly enough. And that was when my mother passed away from cancer. This was in 2017. She died of mesothelioma, which is like asbestosis in the lung. Particularly rough, aggressive kind of cancer. So her passing was obviously one of the, to this date, unfortunately, the saddest moment in my life. But the happiest moment in my life was actually at her wake, giving a eulogy to my own mother. And for a week, or however many days it was between her passing and the funeral, I sat down with my dad primarily, obviously with my brother and my sister talking, but primarily with my dad, and going over like his memories of her, how they met, the early days of their marriage, what it was like raising us as kids, and I just started taking notes. Like all these really lovely, heartwarming, charming stories that he had about her. And then talking with my sister, talking with other people around our small town, stories about her. And I'd literally written this eulogy before I didn't have a clue how many people were going to turn up to her funeral. And my mother was a very, very big volunteer in my local community. She was a stay-at-home mother, and all she ever did was like look after us as kids and volunteer in the community. And when me and my family, my brother and my sister and my dad, we pulled up to the funeral home, you literally couldn't walk. The entire town, like thousands of people, turned up for my mother's funeral. And I was, first of all, I was blown away by that. And then we went up to give her eulogy. And literally the first sentence of the eulogy was, my mother wouldn't believe how many people are here right now to say goodbye to her. And I'd predicted it, but I hadn't predicted it to the degree in which it had gotten to. And it was literally standing room only in the funeral home. And for the next 20 minutes, I proceeded to regale, everybody who had known her for the last 50 odd years with all these amazing, incredible, heartwarming and hilarious stories about her, our family, her relationship with my dad. And I had an entire town basically cackling and laughing and celebrating my mother's life for about 20 minutes straight on the day we all said goodbye to her. And that is without a doubt, at this point in my life, the proudest moment of my life.
That's so good, man. I appreciate you sharing that story. And it seems like she meant a lot to you. And it seems like she meant a lot to a lot of people.
It's funny though. Yeah. It's a woman who it's when you meet somebody who's truly selfless, they have I noticed this, people who are very, very selfless tend to have a little bit of like a degree of like insecurity about them. And they don't really perceive how valuable they are to others. They have kind of a lot of that negative self-talk. And it's a pattern. I know that was something my mother definitely had, and it's a pattern I've recognized in other people.
What do you think that is? Like, what do you think that? Because I agree with you. I'm curious about your thoughts of where you think that comes from, or why those two things are connected.
Yeah, I think it's fundamentally valuing other people's opinions over your own. So you put other people somewhat on a pedestal, and it causes you to have that like a lesser view of yourself. Your self-esteem is a little bit lower. You base your opinion of yourself more on an external stimulus than your own internal validation. And so I think that breeds a little bit of insecurity.
So, it sounds like it was hard for you to lose your mom. Can you just say a little bit more about what that was like for you, and maybe how that shifted your perspective on life? Did it change anything in your life? And
I always try to find the silver lining with anything in life. And it was, to me, I was extremely grateful for the way that my mother passed, I guess, obviously, unfortunately, in a lot of pain because of the cancer and whatnot. But we were all there with her at the very, very end. All of us were in the hospital room. And not many people get that. It gave me a really interesting perspective on death, because most people, like, they walk across the road, bang, bus. That's it. Game over, or they're on a treadmill and bang, heart attack. Like, it's there. A lot of people, most people don't get to say goodbye, or their loved ones don't get to say goodbye to them and be with them there at the very, very end. And that is a true, true blessing to have that moment and to be able to say goodbye to your loved one. And because of that moment, and obviously the build up leading to it, cancer sucks, man. Like, cancer is an asshole because, you kind of, you see it's coming. Like, it's coming.
Yeah.
It's coming for a long time. And both the person with it and everyone around them who cares about them is kind of dealing with that on a daily basis. But because of that, I make sure that every time I see my brother and my sister, every time I see my father, anytime I'm on the phone with them, no matter what the conversation is, no matter how it ends, I always tell them I love them. And that's to this day. I never ever hang up the phone on my dad without telling him I love him first. And my dad has never said I love you in his entire life. He's one of those old school, like, baby boomer, kind of guys.
Yeah.
But it's fine. He doesn't have to. But I make sure that I never ever hang up that phone without saying I love you, because it's, to me, that's those moments, you never know when that last moment is, and it's very precious. You never want to have the regret of ending a conversation with a loved one on a negative note.